Vegeta! Hey, Vegeta. Hey, Vegeta. Hey, Vegeta. Hey, Vegeta. Hey, Vegeta. Hey, Vegeta. What? Don't drop the soap.
Hey, what's up guys? So it's been a minute since I've done a straight up review, and at the request of a few of you guys, I'll be covering the captain of the former Saiyan army himself, Nappa. Now if you're looking to pick this guy up, he retails anywhere from about 70 to 80 USD. And right now he's sitting at about 73 bucks on Amazon. I posted a link for this in the description down below for you. So with that said, let's get into the actual figure itself. Okay, so right off the bat, the first thing to note about the figure is that this is not the unarmored version we'd seen a couple years back, but you know what? I'm okay with that. However, the one thing I will say is I would have liked the scale of this figure to be more akin to that prototype shown back then. But as I've mentioned in the Super Saiyan Blue 2.0 Goku discussion, scale is something that's been a little wonky within Figuarts in general. And I mean, I've only clued into this possible overhaul in the overall scale as of recently, but aside from this, you can't argue that this Nappa still presents a large and imposing-ish stature, much like his source material counterpart. So here's a box, and I'm not about to read out all the deets on it, as I'm sure enough of you guys have seen the box at various places online. But what I will do is start taking a look at Nappa's overall appearance with y'all right now. Okay, so from head to toe, the man undoubtedly looks like Nappa, or Bill Goldberg in an alternate universe. But since this figure is part of the 2.0 era, it sports much of the same characteristics as other figures, being in the saturated paint and the matted finishes on various parts of the figure. Now, one point of criticism this figure has received in regard to the way it looks, other than its scale, is its color scheme, which is not actually accurate to the anime, in which his armor features more of a yellowish tinge in the padding as well as a slight blue in the torso. Rather, this color scheme Nappa's got going on is more depictive of his Arlian appearance or his manga appearance, but in my opinion, it's still a shade or two even different from that. Now, I think one thing a lot of other reviewers fail to mention is that there might be more logic to this choice of colors than there first appears to be. Now, I know, usually we see these figures based on their first appearances in the source material, but in actuality, Nappa's color scheme right here is very much similar to how he appears in Fighter Z, as well as his cameo in Dragon Ball Super. And before you get on my case about this, relax, I haven't told you anything more than you probably already know about Jiren at this point. Now, this figure's sculpt is quite nice, as with the rest of the 2.0s, it features this hyper stylized, sharper look that really helps the figure to pop. And interestingly enough, there are notes of flesh-colored paint. You can see it right on the hamstrings here, hopefully. Now, while we have him here, can we just note how freaking massive this guy's calves are? I mean, I'm a kinesiology major, and I've seen a lot of calves. But you know, you really see the difference between Saiyan and human physiology right here. I kind of want to do a video on Saiyan physiology. Would you let me know if you're interested in that in the comments below? I'm really happy with how the figure turned out for the most part. I mean, especially with the paint apps, I can't imagine how nerve-wracking it would have been if someone was hand painting like the black on here for it not to bleed into the white. And while you do get some bleeding in certain parts of the figure, I don't know if you can see that right up in there on his abdomen there, it is a pretty decently painted figure. Alright, so in terms of overall articulation, Nappa doesn't have any drawbacks in terms of the 2.0 articulation that we already seen with multiple figures. You know, he displays quite a good range of motion actually for a larger figure. So one thing that always bugged me with multiple releases was the ball hinge in the head, and with Nappa this fortunately is not an issue. I mean, like with the new tech here, it makes switching heads just that much easier. And bam, switching heads has never been easier. And I mean, with a face like this, you can really tell that Nappa enjoys getting all this head. Now for the rest of the figure, as I mentioned, it's very well articulated for its large stature. And the one thing I do like a lot about Nappa, unlike 1.0 Scott or Vegeta, is that the shoulder pads or shoulder blade on the armor are articulated. Now one thing though, you'd think this would allow for, the maximum amount of shoulder mobility here. But with Nappa's current amount of shoulder abduction or shoulder movement here, it's a little bit tricky to take advantage of that. You're gonna have to finagle the shoulder joint into some weird poses to really take advantage of it. Another thing I enjoy about Nappa's articulation is the upper chest portion of his armor, because it's able to glide seamlessly along the abdominal section for a bit of an ab crunch. So just going back to what I was saying about the shoulders, in order to get them to actually go slightly above 90 degrees, you have to actually rotate the shoulder joint backwards like this. And the fun doesn't stop there, folks. Oh no, they decided to throw in some articulated padding on the lower sections of the armor down there. Whether you're trying to recreate a ton of wind coming from below or a Marilyn Monroe-esque pose, Nappa's got the ability to do that. And yes, the figure is mobile enough for you to recreate even this pose. So Nappa comes with a total of 4 heads, and they can pretty much be placed into 2 groups. Those that are smiling, and those with wide open mouths. Jeez Nappa, if I didn't know any better, I'd say you had some kinky ass pastime. So the first of the heads is the one shown on the box, which is the Scouter Smirk head. And I am really happy we got a separate head with the Scouter for this one, as I don't think the other faces are in dire need of having the Scouter attached to it. Now the Scouter itself is a cool translucent purple tinge, with very nice attention to detail sculpted into the side of it. As for the rest of the head, it's very well. I'm even digging the little crinkles across his cranium in various places, as well as the variation in some flesh tone shading. Definitely helps add some vivacity to the figure. Now the next head is a smirking head, albeit without the Scouter, and it's very similar to the actual Scouter head, with the only obvious difference being that there is no Scouter on this head. Otherwise, I think it's pretty much safe to say that they're identical. Okay, so for the last 2 heads, he comes with your standard screaming / power up yelling face, or more so in Nappa's case, blowing his stack, having an aneurysm, and being called back by Vegeta moments later face. It's very nicely done with the addition of some veins popping going on in his forehead there. Now the last head, and perhaps the most iconic head for this figure, is his...
Hey, Vegeta!
And I really like the changes they made for this head, such as the constricted off-center pupils you can see here. But other than that, the 2 yelling heads are pretty much identical as well, right down to the veins popping in the forehead, aside from the pupil locations in the eyes. Now I find it interesting how Tamashii actually didn't include a pose anywhere on the box using this head. I mean, you can argue it's done with the energy effect right at the bottom, but it's really too small to tell, and that pose doesn't really do this head justice anyways. Now in terms of hands, Nappa actually comes with a decent setup. And the one thing I like is that all the hands are separated at the upper portion of the gauntlets, which really helps when trying to free up articulation at the wrist. Anyways, Nappa of course comes with his fists, martial arts hands like most other releases, and these are quite nicely done, as the figure has wrinkles and fingernails sculpted right into it, so it's not just a bland flesh colored hand. Nappa also comes with the karate chop or sprinting / dashing towards you hands, which are welcome additions to the pack, and hopefully if they do a Ginyu release we see similar hands like these come back. Now last but not least is this hand here, a callback to when Nappa and Vegeta first arrived on Earth, and Nappa took out an entire city with his volcano explosion / giant storm or Nappa cannon, whichever one you want to call it. Okay, so Nappa comes with a total of 2 extra things in the box in the form of an effect energy part and a stand for such effect energy part. For this effect part, I'm kind of perplexed as to why this shape and color were chosen. I mean, under no lighting, it kind of looks like a pea comet. I mean, I get most of Nappa's attacks are either physical dashes or massive energy attacks, but perhaps something like Bomber DX could have been used. And to pay homage to this, all I think is necessary is changing the color from yellow to a purplish pink. But I think it's great that we do see at least a little something extra with Nappa, don't get me wrong. So all in all, I think Nappa is a great figure. He's still pretty much available at the time of this video, and if you've been wondering on whether or not to add him to your collection, I'd do him like a $5 bill on the ground and pick him up. Now in my opinion, I think he pairs better with the 1.0 Scouter Vegeta, but that's just me. I think Tamashii did the character well for the price point, and I hope we get to see other Saiyans clad in old school armor sooner or later. Please Tamashii, for the love of God, put an end to the demands for Bardock that plague the comment sections on YouTube videos everywhere. Alright guys, until next time, you know what I always say, may the best of your todays be the worst of your tomorrows. Peace.